Now we go to our comprehensive election coverage. We're taking a live look at the U.S. Capitol in all its grandeur. It looks great, and it was a nail-biter. We've got razor-thin margins in races that are all across the country, and that is why the balance of power in Congress is still very much up for grabs. We've got Joe Khalil joining us live now from Washington, D.C. with everything we're learning this hour. Good morning, Joe.
Yeah, good morning, Mitch. And it's still up in the air who's going to control Congress. If you told us a couple of weeks ago that 2 days after the election, we still wouldn't really have an exact clear picture, you know, we might think we'd be kidding ourselves. But here we are in both the House and the Senate, uncertain. So we're going to give you a picture of what it looks like right now, and we're going to begin with the Senate. And I actually want to start with Alaska. We're going to acknowledge that in a little deeper detail coming up. So we'll put that aside for just right now, and I'll come back to it. But how it looks is there are 3 states right now. We're talking about Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia. And it's going to come down to whichever party can win 2 out of those 3 states. The math is pretty clear on that now. It's pretty simple. So Georgia's going to a runoff. We are not going to know who is going to win Georgia until sometime in December. So that leaves Arizona and Nevada. Right now, Decision Desk HQ has not called either one of those races. The way the results are in right now, it looks as though Arizona is leaning toward the Democrat Mark Kelly, and in Nevada, it is leaning toward Adam Laxalt, the Republican, but again, not called yet. So that's what it looks like. Presumably, one party could win both of those races, and it's game over. But we will see, because we could get results from those 2 states really at any time now. So moving over to the House now, as of this morning, Decision Desk HQ has Democrats holding 191 seats. Republicans have 210. Now, the magic number in the House, 218. That is the number that gets you to a majority. Republicans only need to win 8 more House races. Democrats would need to win 27. There are about 34 races that are left uncalled right now, Mitch. So Republicans, if you just look at the math purely, still have an advantage to take control of the House. That is still the expectation, although, as we know now, this red wave that everybody was talking about is not coming. And the reason that is because of all of these toss-up races, as we call them, those really competitive ones. Democrats won a lot more of them than anyone had expected, and they actually have seen independent voters swing Democrats' way, not Republicans' way. That is something that is pretty unusual in a midterm election. Whoever the party in power is in the White House usually loses those independent voters. That has really been the key difference so far. Now, Mitch, I talked about Alaska. I want to mention why this is important. It's not called yet, but the 2 top vote getters are both Republicans. So we know it's going to go Republican. However, if you've been paying attention to the Senate over the past couple of years, the difference is Lisa Murkowski, who's a Republican that has voted with Democrats quite a bit when it comes to bipartisan bills, or Shibaka. If Shibaka wins this race, then Joe Biden and Democrats are not going to have a Republican in the Senate that they can likely count on to pass a lot of these bills. So even though it's certainly going to go to a Republican, whoever wins that race, whichever Republican does, is actually going to have a really big impact in terms of what gets passed, what does not get passed, the president's agenda moving forward. Because remember, in a very split, very tight U.S. Senate, which is certainly what we're going to have at this point, those small margins certainly count. It's why senators like Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, and others who often buck their party have such strong influence over the chamber. So while we're watching pure numbers and balance of power, it's important to remember, Mitch, that candidates themselves also matter and certainly could go a long way in terms of what happens with respect to the country.
You said it, Joe. You mentioned Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. Whatever the split of this Senate, they are still going to have a lot of power if they decide not to vote straight down with the Democratic Party and some of their objectives. That is Joe Khalil. He's reporting from our nation's capital, and we're going to see him later in the show. Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation in your cable lineup. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-based, unbiased coverage.